So this is a fun topic, isn't it? These are, well, Armorizers. Well, at least Slammer is. The other three, sorry, Slammer, are their own sub thing, like Junkion and then Infernacian, I guess. So, but I guess we could still use the general term of weaponizers, and these guys are fun. As you can see, I currently have 4, which is kind of a shame, because if I had 5, I could do a top 5 of my favorite to least favorite, but I guess top 4 will have to do. But yeah, this video is just going to be kind of talking about the general thing about these guys, and how I love this idea so much, and I'm kind of sad that we don't have as many of these anymore. I mean, we do have Micronus and Amalgamus, and that's it. Like that's from like the main current stuff, but hey, what can you do? So let's start with my least favorite out of all of these, which is sadly Trash Master. So let's get him out of the way first. So Trash Master is the Voyager of the Junkions. He was the first Voyager class Junkion, and the only one out of the original Junkion line that I have. Since technically Lockdown counts, but he is not technically a Junkion. I don't like him very much. I love him still, but he does not have, and as an overall figure, he's pretty good. But as a Junkion, he falls short, and as in Weaponizer, he falls short. So, Armourizer. They're Armorizers. I've been saying Weaponizer, haven't I? They're Armorizers. But yeah, for comparison, Deluxe and Voyager, just to get the basic scale, he is kind of average Voyager. Tarn is tall. Tarn is tall. And then obviously my previous review, which is a Deluxe, but yeah. Anyway, I think he falls a bit short on that idea. We'll take off his weapon here. It is a claw, which is kind of funny, because you can kind of get him into some solo modes, which is actually where I think I had the most fun playing around with him. But, as you can see, he kind of has a bit of a bulkhead look, like in his head, so that's cool. Kind of like a fusion of Bulkhead, Optimus Prime, and then Redgar, which I kind of like. So, full thing. He does have a bit of this, which does get in the way, though there is a way to fix it by simply removing it and then plugging it on his back. And then so there, it's not as much as an issue, and recently that's how I've been kind of displaying him, so. Yeah. Articulation is, he has a ball joint at the head, but it acts more like a swivel. He has a hinge, so he can look up, though that looks kind of funny. He has a full rotation at the arm, and it can go out about that far. He does have a bicep swivel and a elbow that goes more than 90, and a wrist swivel. He does have a waist swivel, though his hip skirts don't actually attach to the hips, so they do get a bit in the way, especially if you have the big, this section still attached here. It doesn't get in the way, but it's a bit odd. Legs can go forward that far, back that far if this doesn't get in the way. There you go. He does have that far forward and due to the peg, a thigh swivel and a decent 90 degrees bend and some very loose ankle tilt, rock thingy, and ankle tilt. This is probably where most of the issues of this figure come from, because it's just so loose. He has a trouble standing sometimes, which is kind of not great, especially for the fact that he is supposed to look bulky and supposed to stand his ground a lot of the time. But what can you do? And there is a peg, goes in the slot, of course, because it is a weapon, but it does have a tendency of being very hard to put in, and the jaw tends to come undone as well. But yeah, overall articulation, not the greatest. And you can't really use he has the parts form excuse, because he barely does that. Which I'm going to show off right now. That's how we're going to structure this. Then we'll go into alt mode. So, you take this off. That, obviously, it's more normally here, but that comes off, and then you just rip these apart. His weapon is one of these, and then he has these bits here that come off as well. And then he has his legs that come off. And you're stuck with his entire torso, including his arms. His arms don't even untab, unless you count the mushroom peg. But I don't. So, there you go. He's stuck as a torso. So, you barely have, and I don't have the... Hold on. And that's the parts you have. Which is fine and decent, but it's not a lot. Like, at most, you can use his legs as stabilities or, like, back things. He has this claw, which does open up some possibilities. Like, you can peg it in on the side and then have this peg on the back. So, there are possibilities with this, but it's a lot less than your average Junkion. And then, obviously, you have his entire torso, which, in the end of this video, I will go through a bit of stuff of what you can do with each individual bot. But, yeah, honestly, if you have to pick any Junkion, don't pick Trash Master. If you want him for the pure, like, fun factor of ripping him apart thing, which he can't even do. So, hold on, I need to, it's the other way. So, personally, Trash Master, sadly, is my least favorite, and he's the second of these guys I got, so, of, like, the whole Armourizer gimmick. But he was my first Junkion. So I do have a soft spot for that part only, but objectively, I don't recommend this guy if you want him purely for the ripping him apart and slapping him on other guys thing. Yeah. Especially that now there's Retgar, animated Retgar, which barely counts as animated Retgar at this point. But hey, it's at least a version of this mold if you really want to track it down. Next up, is this guy, and I did a review on him. I did a short review on him. I saw a few comments saying how to actually pronounce his name. I already forgotten how to do that. I already forgot how to pronounce his name correctly from the comments, but I always pronounced it Nucleus, as in Nucleon, because that is where his name originated from. So I just call him Nucleus. Nucleus, and I just say it fast, and I mess it up. And I mess up the pronunciation, but whatever. So he's my third favorite because of another issue that he has, and the other two sort of solve it afterward. But he's really cool. He's definitely my favorite looking. Play value, not as much, but coolness factor, he definitely is up there. As a pure Transformer, he's also really good, and he's solid. I really like his night aesthetic, to the point where, and it's now behind a few guys, where I go out of my way to give him a sword. Because the mace is just kind of funny that he just has that, just a bonking stick. I mean, knights do use maces. They have used maces, I'm pretty sure, but it's not the first thing I think of. But yeah, I really, really love his design, especially with the rock look. But, yeah. Oh. So, and he is based on the, I forget what the name, I think it was like Magmatron, or, no, it wasn't Magmatron. Magmatron's a different character entirely. I forget what the name of the previous version of this mold is, but he was like the first version of that, and he had a pickaxe instead of this. I do want to try and find that one. Anyway, transformation, articulation, he has a swivel at the head, which is really tight still. A full rotation at the arm. It can go out that far. He does have a bicep rotation and a roughly 90 degrees of bend. He has a ball joint at the wrist that allows him to do this, so you can get him doing the iconic pointing like this. He does have a spoilers. He does have hip joints that go forward. He can, whatever, I'll just leave it off. His leg can go forward that far. Back is completely unhindered. It can go out that far. Gonna plug that back on. He does have a full knee bend, and then he also has ankle rock that way, non-backward, and tilt. So he does have articulation, and he is articulated, especially with his accessories being a shield and mace. You can get some really nice poses out of him. So as an overall figure, he's pretty good. This is the only complaint that I have with this guy entirely. It's just that the shin piece just pops off way too easily. But yeah, now the breaking him apart, you kind of already saw this part in that short review if you've seen it, but he can break apart, and then you can take his arms off, his shins come off, these wheels come off, and then these guard pieces also come off his arms. And then you're left with his torso again. And then this is everything he has, which isn't as much and isn't as varied, especially with how this works, because there's no peg on it, which that is something they should have done. They should have made this a peg instead of this, because that actually would have been better in my opinion, because then you could have like put this on like on the shoulder or something. Anyway, but yeah, that's the stuff that he has. Again, we'll get into this after we get down to transformations for every single one. But again, main reason why this guy is 4th is because while he is a good overall figure on his own, and while I can do a lot more varied combinations, he does tend to get a little lower because so much of him is still left over, which I don't really like. I don't like when majority of the thing is still left behind. I want to make use of everything, which his main torso block that he has, and I'm trying to find his other leg. I might even cut this section out. His entire main body, which is what's left other than his arms, can't be used for anything. And you can get creative and use that as a giant shield, which I have done. But I just don't like it very much. Anyway, that's it for Nucleus. Second place is Lockdown. This guy, I'm pretty sure, was the 3rd Armourizer I got. And technically he isn't supposed to be one. He's not supposed to be an Armourizer. He's based on the Junkion mold. I don't remember the name of that original mold, but he came from the Star Raiders subline. And he's really cool. I really like this design. He is stockier than he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be a lot lankier, and I know that. I didn't give Nucleus a proper comparison, so forgot about that. Here is Nucleus with some friends. Not really, but, you know, size comparisons. Anyway, back to Lockdown. Here is a size comparison with Lockdown. Now, I don't have any nostalgia for this design, but he's still really cool. Now, again, the main reason why this guy's 2nd, he's just cool. Anyway, articulation is that he has a swivel at the head, a rotation at the arm that can go out that far. He does have a bicep swivel. His elbow is a bit wonky, and both joints that his elbow is connected to aren't strong, but they're able to hold. And he does have a wrist swivel. He does have legs that can kick up all the way and back only that far, and the backpack doesn't even hinder that. That's just how it's built, how he's built. Then he can do the full splits. He could do a, thanks to the peg, he does have a thigh swivel, and he has a decent elbow, knee, that's a knee. He has a beautiful ankle pivot, and he has this action, thanks to transformation. Now, he does have a bit of a weird factor here because of how you're supposed to put the accessories on. Because every single one of his accessories have to parts form for transformation. So personally, I don't do all of the parts forming. I actually leave the pipes here. This is where they're supposed to be for car mode. I don't move them because that's just too much stuff to worry about. So I just leave them on, and then I take his engine, I place it on his left forearm. I give him this contraption, which After a while, the peg for the hook does get loose, so just be aware of that. As you can see, it just popped right off. Oh, now I think it's too loose to hold. Anyway, so he just holds this gun, and then I have the other two just on his back, which is asymmetrical, but due to the fact that you're going to be seeing from the front most of the time anyway, I don't really mind, and he's already asymmetrical with his arms, so not that way. But yeah, for his splitting parts, obviously his weapons and accessories come off, which are a lot. So you already got a lot of variety with his accessories alone. His his legs come off, and his arms come off. And while, yes, his torso is still here, the torso itself is relatively easy to incorporate into some stuff. But he is that, and it's not as egregious as Trashmaster and this guy. But yeah, honestly, this is a lot more stuff to work with, and I have a blast figuring out what to do with Lockdown. But yeah, I'm not going to bother putting this back on. We're just going to cut to where he's fully fixed, and that's annoying now. It doesn't fall out that much, which is really annoying now because, again, I'm repeating myself. That is the first time it just starts popping out like that all the time, which, let's pull that out like a tad. That should fix it. All right, there we go. So I like Lockdown. That is it. And no surprise, because it's Slammer. I love Slammer. Slammer is so good. I know he parts forms completely, but it means that they can get away with a lot more. Like, as cool as the Junkion idea is, a fully integrated transformer that can split apart, and it is the model they started going for after they made the Junkions, I just like this idea more. Just going all in on the parts forming idea, and Slammer does it the best. From Transformers Kingdom, by the way, this is where this guy's from. I don't even have a Metroplex. I don't even have a Metroplex for this guy to go with. I just have Slammer. And he does the most out of every single one of the Armorizers that I have. So he has a ball joint at the head that actually can do stuff. And because of just how his head is positioned, it can actually still use the transformation hinge. He has a rotation at the arm that can go out that far as well. A bicep swivel. A really good elbow that's 90 degrees. He has a waist swivel. His legs can go forward that far. Back. Not much due to this, but if you take it off, it can go all the way. Now, I say that, and I just took off the backpack to make it fast, but you could do that. So if you take this off for him to just hold as a sword, now get back in there, you have that option. He has a thigh swivel. He can do the splits. I forgot to show that, but you can do the splits. He does have a thigh swivel, a really good knee bend due to his hollowness and transformation. Hollowness on the back of the legs. And a ankle tilt. No pivot, but yeah. Overall, and I guess technically reverse ab crunch, if you count the transformation hinge and that hinge, though that looks a little weird, especially if you do that. So I don't count it. But I really like Slammer's articulation. Now his parts that he could split into, you have his gun, basically everything that can't, everything pops off. That was the model, taking everything apart. And yeah, I think this era did it the best. And while yes, those figures from Siege weren't really good, Slammer definitely was the best out of those style. But I prefer that method anyway, especially with this torso piece, because the torso piece is probably the smallest that it could be, and it also, and I need to grab a figure to show this off, but if you plug it into the forearm here, and again, I could show this off later, but I just really want to show it off now. A big ol' fist. Actually, I think if I do this way, it should be better. Yeah. A big old fist. Which I don't even think was intentional at all. You can even just ignore the fist idea and just plug it on the back. Like that, like a giant backpack. So, a lot of, like, this entire set of components, in my opinion, just works so much better than everything else. It's so varied. Like, for example, the legs become missile pods. The arm here, if you pair it up with the blaster, is just a gun. Like, there is so much you could do with this stuff, and I love it. It's just, I'm gushing. Anyway. Yeah, so I don't need to get all gushy on Slammer. I just really love Slammer. Anyway, yeah. So he is my favorite, and basically, the rule of thumb is the more parts that they split into, the more I'm gonna like them because of just the sheer play pattern and customization and fun factor. Which is why I love Slammer so much. I do want to get, like, Brunt, because I do actually have Triptychon, so, and I think Brunt is supposed to go with Triptychon. So that's why I want Brunt, because then I can actually have him with my Triptychon. Not even that, just to have a Decepticon version of Slammer, basically. Anyway, let's get down to the transformations, because, yeah, this is where it gets interesting. So we're going to start with just, I'm going to go through the transformations, but not in the instructional sense, not the way I normally do it. So, and just go through it, and just talk about things about it. So overall transformation for Trashmaster here is your stereotypical big guy turned to truck. The chest, the torso becomes the front, the legs become the back, and then the arms do a variation of either become part of the chest to form the front, or they swing to the back. So it is a fun transformation to do. I love flipping him back and forth. So that's not a complaint here. And it's also really fast. And then we have Trashmaster in garbage truck mode, and this is a really nice garbage truck. For Nucleus, I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. I give up. We got, and again, stereotypical transformation, except there are a few differences. Like, for example, the chest, if you've already noticed, has the front wheels. So they actually flip out like this, and the head flips in. And then his arms become the sides. It is basically stereotypical car transformation. The top half becomes the front, the bottom half becomes the back, and the arms always become the sides, or at least tuck in. And then the shield becomes the top, the weapon splits, and yeah. So, stereotypical carbot transformation, basically. Nothing new. Still fun, though. And, again, walk down. Fun transformation, overall. And the feet become the front this time, but yeah, the feet fold up against the shins. I do like his transformation. There are a few bits and pieces that I don't like his arms sometimes popping off during the transformation a little too easily. And everything tabs in. And this is the part that actually feels the worst here. So you have to somehow get his arms in the right position, and then you have to get it all right in position, so where they're tabbing into each other and then also tabbing into themselves. And it was a lot easier on camera because I was talking about how difficult it is. But it's definitely my least favorite part, and it's probably worse to take it apart. Now, it looked easy there, but it's tough. Anyway. Then I plug the hook in here, which might be why it's getting looser, because it's a very tight connection there. And then we take these two gun pieces, and yeah, you just put on all the accessories like you should, like the instructions tell you to, if they actually plug in. Because now it's being difficult. There we go. And then the engine block. And there's his car mode. Then Slammer is rip them apart and put them back together. The only difference is that you don't take the arms apart. You only take the shoulders off, and then you combine them like this. I mean, you can take them fully apart anyway, and it makes it a bit easier for lining things up, but yeah. Then we take his arms, plug them on the back here, keeping the space in between, taking the legs, and then putting them in between the arms, plugging on this adapter piece, which is very loose, except when I say it is. And there's his tank mode. Now for alt mode, I have no complaints for any of these. They all look great. Trash Master is probably my favorite because of just how solid he is in this alternate mode. They're all pretty solid in their own right. But again, we're going to start with Trash Master, who's a brick. He's just a straight up brick, and I love it. Obviously, the claw is in the back, but it works. I just love the aesthetic of the Junkions just being Mad Max vehicles. Basically, like, you could shove this in a Mad Max film and no one would bat an eye. But yeah, I really like it. Not much to say, though. He rolls as rolling things should. And, yeah. Nucleus, again, I give up on pronouncing his name at this point, is a really nice rock car, I guess. It also rolls. I love the boosters in the back. That's just funny. He kind of looks like a spaceship. Like a rock car plus spaceship, kind of, and I really like that aesthetic. But nothing much about this. It's a neat little car. Rolls excellently. I'm pretty sure... No, they're not pinned. Yeah. But they roll pretty well. I mean, I'm using a pretty grippy surface. I'm using a desk mat, so it's gonna grip a lot better, but very nice. Very nice alt mode. I like the concept of these guys. Almost fell off the table there. Breakdown, yeah, this is just great. The Junkion mold that they based this guy off of really works for Lockdown because of just the extra panels and stuff, and just overall works very well for getting the bounty hunter aesthetic across, and it just works. It does feel a little smushed than what you would expect Lockdown's alt mode to be, but as a remold of a pre-existing figure to make a pre-existing character from a character that didn't have this guy in mind, it works really well. So there you go. I like this alt mode. And then of course we have Slammer, who is also just straight up a brick. And it works. This is basically what Slammer was in the original toy. He was literally just this tank that could stand up and become a tower. That's all he could do. That's all the original Slammer could do. So, but they were able to translate into his tank very nicely. Don't like that tamper graph though, but that's needed for legal reasons, I'm pretty sure. But I feel like they could have put it somewhere else, but yeah. So bringing the rest of the cast, I almost grabbed a different figure that was sitting next to here. For size comparison, we're gonna do 2 at a time because I don't have the space on the board here. So we're gonna start off with a deluxe car, which, yeah, this kind of works. Bringing in Rat Matt, who I don't think was a very smart idea because he just has a very big wingspan, but you get the point. And Tarn. Bringing in these guys, we got standard Carbot. So there you go. I think I said Rat Bat initially, but this is Sideways. Cybertron Soundways. I probably got like so many angry comments from the fact I called him Rat Bat, but it's Sideways. It's Sideways. And Tarn. So there we go. Now that we have them back in their robot modes, it's time for the either fun part or the rough part, which is getting into what these guys can do with your standard figures. So let's get into it. We're gonna again start with Trash Master. Again, Trash Master is probably the worst example of how a Junkion could be because of just how much is left over. But let's grab let's get this started, shall we? I'm gonna bring in my previous review, Hound, since I feel like he deserves to at least have something to do in this. So we're gonna start with what this is basically gonna boil down to is showing how I typically like to structure each build. We're gonna start with what you can do with his torso, because I feel like you should at least be able to know what you can do with it. Fun fact, the pump of the house started acting up. The pipe wasn't fully connected. It's all good now. Anyway, so to do, what to do with Trash Master's torso. You take his head, and you just fold it in. You take his arms, plug them into like you're going into garbage truck mode. Then you can flip these up, and then you can kind of do whatever you want with the waist. I kind of like having it like this. Bring his arms in whatever position you want. And with that, I think it's actually this way. You have yourself a turret. A little sentry. And honestly, that is the best I could do for Trash Master because of just because of all just the leftover parts. Anyway, let's armor up Hound. So you could kind of do like this, where he has the big old gun, he has hooks on his arms, he has these extra shoulder pads. The feet become giant guns, the claw holds everything on the back. Yeah. Oh, and turret. So. We'll bring in turn for this one, and we'll use lockdown. All right. So here's lockdown. So when you break him into components, we'll put him onto turn here. And you might have noticed, but I have lockdown in a different configuration of his accessories, because as I was transforming him, I was like, oh, I'm on a roll of interruptions today. Anyway, yeah, so I just found out a new way of putting his accessories on. Anyway, moving on. Let's get Tarn armorized. And then we have a customized Tarn. As you can see, I think it looks kind of neat. The only issue is that it is a bit unwieldy, the cannon. But I more think of this as more of a he gets situated and then starts blasting sort of thing. But yeah, I think this is pretty cool. Cannon's not very solid in the hand though. Anyway, next we got a few others. Let's do these two together, because this guy doesn't technically an Autobot or a Decepticon, but Sideways can also be a Autobot or a Decepticon, so we'll do this. So let's get this done. There we go. Sideways using Nucleus's parts, and it's a bit unwieldy, but it works. $10 says that this is gonna pop off screen. All right, final. We're gonna bring in a original Siege mold and Slammer. I already forgot what his name is. Again, I keep forgetting his name. I just forget. Anyway, moving on. Let's try and do this. I do have a idea in mind, because I like giving, because I found this way of making a sniper rifle before, and I really like that idea. So we're gonna try and reincorporate that idea. We can use his missile launcher as the sniper scope. We could take the original barrel like that. We could take this extra thing. No, that can't work, but we'll make it the stock. We got a sniper rifle. So we can already... I'm actually going to get him into a neat pose of him holding the sniper rifle. So we're going to... That's the idea. We're going to try and get a sniper build. And then we got Clamp Down. Making sure he actually can stay seated and not fall over. We got Clamp Down, fully armorized, and that is my favorite one. I am not joking, this is actually so far my favorite one. I can see how I can also make this work for Hound as well. Honestly, this is just my favorite one purely because of what you can do with it. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. It's a bit different, and honestly, I'm probably not going to keep doing videos like these. I just really wanted to at least show off the Armorizers, which is probably one of my favorite big features. Honestly, this is the main gimmick of Transformers, other than transforming now, is which is more articulation and which is more articulation and more customization when it comes to ports. And yeah, that is probably my favorite part of this entirely. I can't fit him in. Hold on. Well, I'm gonna keep him in the center. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. It is a bit different, but I hope that you all enjoyed. Now, out of all of these, obviously I'm not gonna hit a recommendation, because purely I just really like Slammer, purely just because of that. And also, he was my first one. He was the first one I got to mess with out of all these. So yeah, I'm gonna have a bit of a bias for him. But hey, I think these the Armorizers are a fun concept, and no matter which one you get, you're gonna have a blast trying to incorporate them into onto other figures anyway. So that's it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed. Again, different video, but yeah, see ya.